Talk Show. Recorded live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Local Supporting Locals, the heartbeat of the Okanagan, with host Kevin Proteau, featuring a special guest each week to discuss current political challenges and, more importantly, solutions. Kevin, who do we have on tonight?
Thank you so much, Vicki. This evening we have Allan Patton, and he's a member of the Regional District Okanagan-Similkameen, and we're going to be discussing the issues surrounding GMOs and specific challenges and solutions that Allan Patton has been working with the RDOS. And all of our shows until May 24th are dedicated to, as a build-up for the March Against Monsanto. And for those just listening, there's a worldwide march that's taking place on May 24th in over 400 countries and 400 cities and 50 countries worldwide at the same time. So with Local Supporting Locals here, our goal is to not only raise awareness, but also bring solutions and bring people to our show here that are working on solutions. So last week we had Harold Steves and what the city of Richmond is doing down there and how progressive they are with GMOs. And this week we're very fortunate to have Allan Patton. And so we'd like to welcome you, Allan, to the show. If you can tell us a little bit about the role of the RDOS and what you do, that would be fantastic.
Oh, thanks, Kevin. Sure. So I'm a Regional District Director, voted in as a representative for rural Oliver. And there's about 4,000 people here, and it's a intensive agricultural area primarily. We do have some small subdivisions and stuff, but it's really intensive agriculture that's the primary driving force of the economy around here. So I sit on a board with 6 other municipalities and 7 other regional district rural areas. There's 18 of us all together. And we vote and decide on issues, land use issues, economic issues, bylaws, all that kind of stuff on the whole area. And the area goes from the border to beachland, about 150 kilometers north of the border, and from Manning Park to Mount Baldy, another probably 150 kilometers that way too. So it's a pretty big area. Contains, as I say, 6 municipalities and 8 rural areas. So, and I sit on the board and we make decisions that concern all of us. Okay.
Yeah. So you've done something that's very encouraging here with at the last union of the British Columbia municipalities with what you brought to the floor here in regarding GMOs. So if you maybe explain to our listeners exactly what you've done.
Okay, sure. I'm a tree fruit grower in the Okanagan too, so I've spent all my working life pretty well being a farmer growing tree fruits, apples primarily. And now that I'm a local government elected official, I can proceed with assisting farmers with agricultural issues that are relevant to them. What happened was the local farm association, the BC Fruit Growers Association, in conjunction with the Horticultural Council Apple Working Group, which deals with all apple growers in the whole country, they asked us to declare this area free of GE apples and declare that in the local government level. So what we did at our regional district is we passed a motion that told the federal government to deny the registration of the Arctic apple, which is a GE apple. And they went ahead and passed a motion to have the UBCM ask the British Columbia government to legislate the prohibition of importing and exporting and the domestic production of tree fruit and plant material containing GE DNA constructs. In other words, anything to do with GE in our apples or our trees or our plants, and to declare through legislation that BC is a GE-free province in respect to all tree fruit products. So I took that motion to UBCM. Now, UBCM is the Union of BC Municipalities, which is a collection of all local governments in BC. They convene in one place once a year in September, and we deal with all issues relevant to local government and the provincial government. So this was a good venue to bring this up. Now, I brought that motion forward to the Assembly, and after I spoke to it, funnily enough, nobody else got up, and it passed almost unanimously, which I was very happy to see. So that was substantial. All the municipalities and regional districts in the province voted in favor of that. I think there was just 2 or 3 hands that might have gone up in opposition compared to hundreds that carried the motion. So that was really nice to see. Now, my argument was economic, but I can get into that a little later. If you'd like, I could tell you what the rest of the process was up to now as far as motions go.
Yes, by all means.
Okay, so that was 2 years ago. Last year, in a jurisdiction in Vancouver Island, a friend of mine in Metchosin put in a motion to declare all food products and feed products, in other words, all agricultural products that would be eventually consumed by humans, to be banned, and that was a little more controversial. Quite a bit of debate on that, but it passed, and it passed substantially. Over 60% voted in favor of that. So that was also substantial, and obviously it shows substantial support by our local governments in British Columbia to say no to GE food and feed products in our province. So the province has definitely indicated to us that they're definitely concerned about GE and all that it entails, but they haven't done anything in terms of past legislation on it, which is something we're looking forward to. Now, the motion that was brought to UBCM from Metchosin couldn't be carried forward to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities because of its wording. It didn't have its scent. So I got a motion passed at our regional district, which can be transferred to the next Federation of Canadian Municipalities meeting back east in Ontario. And funnily enough, that's in a very intensive tree fruit and wine growing area there too. So I'm hoping to take that motion to FCM. The executive has decided to make it a Schedule B motion, which means it doesn't come forward to the floor for debate. I'll try to bring it forward, but it's difficult. They have a hard process to go through, but I'll give it a try anyway. And that motion basically dealt with asking for a moratorium on all present and that the federal government, that the Federation of Canadian Municipalities recommend to the Government of Canada that a moratorium be placed on all present and future food and animal feed genetically engineered registration applications. and this is subject to a nonpartisan review undertaken by Parliament to assess all aspects of GE crops now in existence. And then also a public and consumer input and consultation process be developed and undertaken across Canada with recommendations presented to Parliament for consideration. So that passed at our regional district, and I intend to take that to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. That's a convention where all the municipalities across Canada attend once a year. So it's the one step above the UBCM one. So they know about the motion. They know that I'll be bringing it forward on the floor, but we'll see what happens there. I've tried that before with the tree fruit one, and it didn't fly because, well, they don't even tell you what the motion is. It's and they have very few motions that they pass there, and it's fairly controversial, and they're pretty soft on controversial motions. So we'll see. But I'm going to give it a try again anyway. So that's what the stage is now anyway.
And good for you, Allan. You know, you're out there fighting the good fight for a lot of us. But how likely is BC going to be to carrying this forward in legislation and then on to the feds? I mean, can BC even do anything? Isn't this a federally regulated matter, the whole GMO issue?
Well, that's a good question, and you know, I look at it as being true. The federal government is the one that decides on whether or not a product gets registered or not. But the provincial government has legislative abilities to restrict it from entering or being produced in the province. Okay, and it's like, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no, and how much power do we have locally? Do we just have to follow what the province lays out, or can locally we make some decisions ourselves?
Locally, we don't, and to tell you the truth, I would be hesitant to have local governments in a capacity making decisions on agriculture. That really should be a provincial and federal decision-making jurisdiction. So, but we can recommend strongly, which we have done, and we can give them all the ammunition they need to do this. You know, local governments can say we don't want any nuclear power in our jurisdiction, but really it's only the province that can prevent that. And for instance, they did that already. So even though the province doesn't have the ability to build, and they can prevent them from happening. So just the same with nukes. It's the same with GMO. They have the ability. The province has the ability to say no to the production of GE foods in our province. The local government can only do it in terms of them. You know, our local government is not going to be planting any GE landscaping materials. We can go that far, but we can't tell farmers what they can and can't plant. That's got to be under the jurisdiction of the province.
Right.
Okay?
Can we do what Richmond did though, and ban the sale of seeds? So
GMO.
they couldn't tell the farmers what they could or couldn't plant, but they could ban the sale of the GMO seeds. Well,
that's interesting. I'd like to know more about that, because if Richmond that's another difference between municipalities and regional districts.
Right.
I don't doubt very much if the regional districts would have the ability to ban, especially a seed store that's inside a municipality. We wouldn't be able to have that ability unless the municipality itself wanted to say no, that farmer's supply store can't sell GE seed. Well, then the farmer has to go get it somewhere else. But if that's what they want.
Well, I guess this really goes to show to other people how complex this is when it comes to individuals not understanding why we just can't go ahead and do certain things. It's all these levels of government involved, all of these different rules and regulations of every level of government, and not to mention even the international agreements that we might not be aware of that affect all this. Is that correct?
Well, I'm sure glad you brought that up. That was my argument at UBCM when I got my motion passed carried almost unanimously to ban the import and domestic production of tree fruits in the province, and the import. That's very important. So, and my argument was purely economic. Okay, the conventional farmers, the conventional tree fruit growers like myself, my apples go to Taiwan and to Europe and to everywhere. I do not want my apples being restricted in terms of my export markets because they're GE. And the trouble is, if some guy in Summerland wants to plant a GE farm so his apples don't go brown, well, that affects my ability to sell my fruit to markets that I would get the best price for. And you bet I'm not in favor of that. And right. And the UBCM directors agreed with me. Mm-hmm. So that was substantial. Of course, the organic growers have an even bigger impact on their industry, since any GE constructs in their fruit or products would mean they lose their organic certification, which would be the end of the organic industry in Canada, or in BC at least, if not all of Canada.
It's going to be very interesting to see the outcome of the court case in Australia then, where it's one farmer suing another farmer.
Yes, and that's, Percy Schweitzer, and that's what I thought he should have done. He should have taken Monsanto, and I'm not sure, maybe he did, but I didn't think that's what happened. Monsanto took him to court for planting their seed, but he should have taken them to court for contaminating his ground with their seed that he didn't want.
Yeah, well, in Australia, it's the first case of its kind in the world where one farmer is not suing Monsanto, they're suing their next-door neighbor.
Well, that's really appropriate, and that's exactly what I've been waiting for and wanting to see, because really that's what the deal is. It's one farmer contaminating another, and you can bet I have already considered that. If this guy up in Summerland plants his, I don't have to be the neighbor. The beekeeper who brings his bees to my place also parks his bees in Summerland. So I get my crop contaminated with Summerland pollen that's GE. So I haven't asked anybody's permission to grow GE or tell them that they can contaminate my crop with GE. No way. Yeah. So you can bet I'm going to be looking at every aspect to stop this. There's no way I'm going to sit still and watch this happen, and neither are a lot of other farmers. So I'm very interested to hear this Australian. I hadn't heard that before. That's fascinating.
Yeah, we're just waiting for the decision to come down now. It happened, I think, last month, wasn't it, Kevin?
I guess when you're speaking about the GMO apple, the Arctic apple, you're speaking on Okanagan specialty fruits, correct?
Yeah, they're the ones that are trying to register it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, and from going to their website too, where they don't even discuss. They say it's a non-browning apple. They don't even let you know that it's actually genetically modified or genetically engineered. But they're also looking at genetically modifying peaches, pears, and cherries as well.
Yeah, cherries have been in the works for a while too. I know that. This is not the first application that's gone forward to CFIA. when Corky Evans was Minister of Agriculture, there was an application to CFIA, Canadian Food Inspection Agency, who registers GE food products. There was an application there. Corky Evans was Minister of Agriculture, and he put a stop to it. So the province can do that.
Wow.
So the Minister of Agriculture here, Minister Lutnick is I'm glad to see him Minister of Agriculture. He might be a little more forward thinking in respect to this. So yeah, I'll be talking with him. I did talk to the parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Agriculture federally, and told him of my concerns on the industry's concerns on GE apples and what it can do to our markets. But I got the same answer about the science is good and we're going by science-based decisions. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to eat science. I want to eat my food being wholesome and natural. And there's nothing natural about GE food. It never has been natural, and it never will be natural. It's
yes.
just not found in nature, okay?
Yeah.
These guys are constructing it, and I don't want any part of it.
Well, I mean, the one thing we got to be concerned about, like we see in the United States, there is how the boards of Monsanto swing back and forth between the board members of the FDA, and we're starting to see that in Canada as well, and with the CFIA. So, I mean, they lobby our government here very much so. So, to put a lot of trust into our federal governments, we got to be concerned. What do you think?
Yeah, that's true, and yeah, I know about that. Where I think his name was Michael Taylor, and he was a lawyer working for Monsanto, and then they put him at the head of the United States Food and Drug Administration. They were the ones that decided to make substantial equivalence the only criteria that was necessary for companies to get their product registered as GE. So, and of course, as you say, it's been all behind closed doors. They don't need to tell the public this. They just go ahead and do that. And of course, that's one issue that is very concerning to me because in local government, we're in the public consultation business. And there has been a total absence of public consultation when it comes to something so important as to what we feed our families. So that does not impress me in the slightest. Yeah. The other issue that I think that is left out of the conversation sometimes is the absence of choice now. Once a product is registered as GE, then really the whole product becomes GE. Even if you're not planting the seed, your farm product becomes contaminated by the action of pollinating insects and wind. Okay, so virtually everything. You cannot buy a jug of Canadian cooking oil that is not GMO anywhere in Canada in any store. All Canadian cooking oil is GE. Okay, and that is, to me, obscene, because we don't have a choice as consumers, as growers, as to what we grow, as to what we eat with this GE thing, and we're not having any say in it whatsoever. So that's why I get a little hot. And no, I didn't give anybody permission to contaminate my fruit with GE, and if I can't have any control about what I grow, you don't have any control about what you eat, and that is just plain wrong.
Well, so so I mean, like Vicky was saying there, for local governments to go after this and then you're saying we should leave it in the hands of the provincial and the federal. And so we're in a position here, we're damned if we do it this way, we're damned if we don't. And, because, like if you look at the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, for example, how they're trying to change the Seed Regulation Act, where, again, like you point out here, it's all done behind closed doors. They're going to decide for the farmer what you can plant, what seeds you can use, and it'll all be marked under sustainability, and this is what you get, and you're no longer allowed to save seeds, So, I mean, people need to be concerned and, more importantly, made aware of this. And, that's having you on the show like this. And, thank you so much for coming on so we can help open up people's eyes here. But that's, the so-called Canadian Food Inspection Agency wants to, to do business behind closed doors, like you're saying. And that is alarming, wouldn't you say?
Well, it's terrible, actually. But you have to understand that we just have to persist, because local government doesn't have the ability to legislate province and countrywide, and we just have to accept that fact. But that doesn't stop us from lobbying both those levels of government to come to their senses and deal with this in a proper manner. Now, you brought up something about the seeds, Kevin, and I quite agree with you. The issue is, you remember I said that, I didn't say it yet, but 90% of all the corn grown in Canada is, and the States, I think now, some hideous percentage, is actually the GEC, okay? But what's happened here is it's the exact same seed. In other words, 90% of all corn grown in Canada is one seed. That is an incredible loss of biodiversity, okay? We are really leaving ourselves vulnerable to all sorts of issues by being so dependent on one seed. Now, I guess the GE proponents will say, oh, well, if we have run into a problem with it, we can just genetically modify it again.
Yeah.
But I'm not impressed with that. There's so many issues here that are problematic. We have the public consultation, which is absent. There's no labeling. There's the absence of choice. There's the loss of biodiversity, complete loss, almost a total loss of biodiversity. There's the environment, which we haven't really looked at all. We haven't talked about it yet, but the CFIA doesn't look at the impact of glyphosate, which is the active ingredient of Roundup, on us consuming it, because we never did in the past, because anything that glyphosate touched, it killed, and we don't eat things that are dead, that are killed. We eat things that are live, plant material, and that kind of stuff. So, but the CFIA doesn't look at that, because that's a job for the PMRA, which is the Pest Management Regulatory Agency. They're the ones that look at pesticide toxicity and URLs and all this kind of lovely stuff. So they can forget about the impact of pesticides. So that's the other issue, is that the GE proponents of saying we're going to use a lot less pesticides. Well, the exact opposite has happened. We're consuming, I don't know, a huge amount more than we ever did of glyphosate. And it's funny, PMRA just increases the amount that we're allowed to consume according to how much the farmers need to put on their crop.
Yeah. Well, hence again, that's why I say, like, the trust we got to have in our, in the provincial, the federal, the CFIA. Now there's there's so many different departments, and we got to put so much trust in them, and that's, and that's again why we with what we're doing here with locals is, we got to try as much as we can to do things at local levels here and just keep pushing and pushing, because like with it. from what your knowledge here now in talking about bees, because you're very passionate when you were talking about your bees, going to Summerland and coming to your place. Now, with these pesticides, from what you understand, would you say that that's attributing to the loss of our bees?
I don't really know. I don't think so. Truthfully, I think it's more a problem of climate change, but I could be wrong. The thing about the farmers, commercial farmers, organic farmers, are very good about making sure that they don't spray the bees with anything, and I don't see much much problem with that. Where they might get affected is where the actual bees might get affected is when they're in the wild and they're feeding on crops near where crops are being sprayed by toxic chemicals. The lovely thing about BC apples especially and our tree fruits is we don't really need to spray a whole lot, and we don't spray much in the way of toxic stuff. So that's why I like your movement on locals, supporting locals, because even the commercial growers are really very, very clean, probably the cleanest in the world commercially. I'm a director on the Sterile Insect Release Board, and we've got this valley so low of codling moth that it's meant we don't have to spray for really any other insects, hardly at all. And when we do spray, we don't use toxic chemicals at all. And not like the good old days when we used to just kill everything constantly. And it's because we have to have perfect fruit to sell at the grocery stores. Consumers will not buy stuff with a mark on them, or if they do, it's got to be brought way down in price. But now my orchard's filled with, and many orchards in the commercial and organic industry here are filled with insects and spiders and beneficials, and it's a going concern, and I love it. And it means that I'm living in a healthy environment, and the fish and all the raptors and the eagles and the hawks, they've all come back. It's just wonderful. So I don't want the GE stuff, and I don't know what GE does to bees or to these birds, and we don't know anything yet. We're just piling into this initiative without really studying anything. This substantial equivalence is absurd. There's so much more to study when it comes to the effect of fooling around with our genealogy. It's shameful how pathetic we're doing in researching the real issues of genetically modifying.
We certainly could be putting our scientists to better use.
Well, they're not being used at all. These scientists come from the actual companies that want the registrations, and there's no third party scientific studies being done, and that's what I'm hoping my motion to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities addresses, is that we need some third party science and not depending purely on Monsanto or specialty fruits to provide us very inadequate information that only deals with substantial equivalence.
Yeah.
I want to know multi-generational impacts on mice. I want to know what's going on with the genealogy of seeds and flesh and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's crazy.
And of course, you've probably heard about the latest studies that have come out, studies of women that have been tested for, I'm not going to pronounce it right, help me.
Glyphosate?
Yeah. Have you read those studies yet?
No.
They're showing that in breast milk, in blood of like pregnant women and non-pregnant women, that it's there.
Well, it would have to be. It's been, and think of it. It's been approved in seeds like in canola and flax, and I think flax is one of them, and now alfalfa, and corn, and this kind of stuff. I mean, we consume so much of that stuff. All the middle aisles in grocery stores are filled with corn, and it's all GE now. So all that stuff has been sprayed with Roundup Ready Roundup. So, well, the seeds are Roundup Ready, but they spray it with Roundup. When the plants are alive, it doesn't kill them, so it maintains it translocates throughout the plant, and they've had to increase the amount of allowable pesticide residue in food to correlate with the amount we're putting on the crop. So,
yeah, what backward thinking is that?
Yeah, it's just beyond belief to me.
But this is where people they need to hear the truth, but it's not to react in fear to. I mean, we do have choices individually and locally. We can stop our consumption of those middle aisle items, and I know that people find it awfully hard to do that. It seems to be one of the hardest things to do. The best thing we can do for ourselves, but for some reason it's the hardest to do emotionally, and that is to change our eating habits and our lifestyle habits. Would you agree with that?
Only to a point, because if once a tomato, or now we've got some, I think pineapples are in there, papayas, and now they've started to register fresh fruits and vegetables. If that's the case, then it doesn't matter where you are. You're going to be contaminated, and you're going to be eating it, and you're not going to know.
Right.
Okay. Now, that's the insidious thing about this whole thing, is that it takes over. Okay, and we don't have any say in it, and that's what really bothers me. And the court seemed to be siding with Monsanto and the boys completely. And until that reverses, I don't know, we got to just continue fighting to stop this.
Yeah, we have to, on a local level, we have to really ramp up the pressure on local governments that pass it on to the provincial governments, that pass it on to the federal governments, and on up. And we can't be part of these trade deals that are going to be negative to our own environment.
Yeah, and our own economy.
Exactly.
We're very concerned about that. So, no, I totally agree with that. And I don't intend to stop. So, I think everybody has to ramp up and try to convince it means talking to your local MLA, it means talking to your local MP, it means writing letters and going out to what Kevin is organizing on May 24th, the March Against Monsanto. It means participating and getting involved. And when you do that, then things grow, and politicians generally don't want to go against people that are coming together in groups complaining about something as legitimate as their concern on this GE food movement. So that's why I really appreciate what Kevin and you are doing right now. It's getting the word out that's so important. I'm dealing with this on sort of a political level, but I know that my fight is useless without the work that you two are doing to bring this issue to the public's attention.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you for that.
Sadly, we're seeing more and more here how companies such as Monsanto, and they're not the only ones of the genetically modified organisms here, or GE, genetically engineered. There's Syngenta, Dole, DuPont, Bayer, BASF. I think there's about 6 or 7 different companies now. So they're getting into our universities, into our high schools, and they're funding. And so it's being taught into some of the universities here how Monsanto is here, and GMOs are here to feed this the world population here, or as they like to say, overpopulation, which I have to admit here with local supporting locals, we do not support we're not overpopulated here in Canada. That's all we know. That's what people need to look at where they live. But yeah, we got too much influence coming in from these big corporations into our schools. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, I'm really glad you brought that up, Kevin, because you mentioned about feeding the world. Well, don't worry, Monsanto and DuPont and all those people couldn't care less about feeding the world. Their only concern is their shareholder price, and that means to protect their ever-increasing shareholder price, they do that by controlling food, not supplying food. So, and it's been already shown by third-party independent statistical farm magazines that the production of GE food is actually less than commercial, and it has been dropping continually. So they're not only not feeding the world, they are reducing the food supply to the world. So I'm glad you brought that up. It's a complete bogus statement. You know, we're going to feed the world. We're using less chemicals. Blah blah blah. It's all being proven to be completely false right now.
Yeah, well, on next week's show too, we're going to be bringing on Heidi Osterman from the True Food Foundation. Yeah, and she's. It's amazing how much that woman's gone out of her way and went to Berlin, and she just came back. Sadly, I don't remember the country that she was just in there where there was, but she's got a lot that's just coming out on glyphosates, and it's hard to pronounce this. Nicotinoid?
Nicotinoids, yeah, I am, yeah.
Yeah, because I got an article in front of me how that's being attributed back to, along with GMOs, to the die-off of the bees. So we're going to have Heidi come on. Yeah.
Well, that's a toxic chemical. So if the bees get a hold of nicotinoids, it's going to definitely negatively impact them big time. So that's definitely an issue. So, but I'm not. I don't know if that correlates with GE, but I wouldn't be surprised if there could be an impact in the future on bees just because of genetically modified, because of how the modification happens, how the genes actually behave, and that's what we don't know anything about. Those studies just aren't happening. So we need a lot more study in this. And in the meantime, we should just say no to any more future and present registrations that are in front of CFIA. And then, and if it does come out that the science is inadequate and or harmful in any aspect to human health or to the ecology or to the environment, then we just put an end to it. The farmers have been gladly feeding the world, and I don't really feel comfortable in having major corporations being my food supplier. I don't have any security in that.
Well, I know. Listening to Shiv Chopra there, you know, like he says, food has to be taken out of the, the economy. You know, it's when that's traded, like they're trying to do, you know, on a global scale, where food has to be taken out of that equation for. I'm losing what I'm trying to say.
No,
here,
I know what you're saying, because that's where local support locals is important. Is where you're supporting your local food suppliers, your farmers that are local, and that's why it is, because the big corporations are really only concerned about, you know, the mega food companies and the middle aisles, right? So
yeah, well, you know, and what is so obvious to me is that science is supposed to work on the precautionary principle. something that they came up with themselves, and saying that, when there's anything ultra new like this, we've got to act with caution. We've got to, see how tread carefully. And they do that in the medical establishment. Certainly we don't deal with real-time science in the medical establishment. It's always 20 to 50 to more years behind. But whenever there is huge money involved, like in the control of the food supply, for example, they are just running leaps and bounds ahead without applying the precautionary principle.
I couldn't agree more. The regional district often makes decisions based on the precautionary principle, and we wouldn't think of putting human health and safety as at a disadvantage compared to some new technology that has just appeared. We would never put at risk the public and make decisions in that respect. So the precautionary principle, you're right, has been totally turfed in the garbage in respect to GE registrations. I don't get it, and I'd like to know why too. So, but it's really
follow the money.
We got to follow the money. Yeah, the money is huge. It's everything these days now. It's the only thing apparently.
Well, I know, and that's why it's sad and frustrating when you see, like as much as I do enjoy the show Dragon's Den, but people like Kevin O'Leary now, actually having a 30-minute show there on CBC News, and he is very, very clear that it's strictly about the money, and he's getting the talk to Canadians, where it doesn't matter. It's about the bottom line, and and the fact that corporations are now persons. It's just alarming. People like Kevin O'Leary really make me nervous, with the positions that they're in, with how much they feel about money.
Well, and how much power they have.
Yeah, Wow.
Well,
sorry, go
it's
ahead.
a small world now, and that's given corporations an avenue to spread themselves everywhere and become quite powerful. I don't know what the answer is other than to just continue to fight. I like your answer about feeding yourself locally. That's really important. But remember, if the trouble with that is, all it takes is one farmer to destroy an industry and to destroy your local area. So I like what Richmond has attempted to do. I'm going to look into that a little bit more and see if we can proceed on that level, because that's at least something that shows what's going on here.
Yeah, so, they've been gutsy.
Well, and they used what they did, because at first they voted to make Richmond GMO free, and it went through unanimously, and then Monsanto showed up at the next council meeting, but before they showed up, they called the mayor and told him that you can't do that. And so it was humorous the way Harold explains how pissed off the mayor was like, who the hell does Monsanto think they are? Telling me what he can and can't do, and and he says, I don't think he would have been so involved or so concerned until Monsanto actually told him what he can do. And so what they did is Monsanto said, you can't stop us from planting planting GMOs. You can't enforce that. And so he says, nope, we can't do that, but we'll do like we did with the pet stores. They just to prevent them from bringing puppies in from puppy mills. And so that's what they did with the GMO seeds. So they have now banned the sale of GMO seeds within the city limits. So it's a good start. You can do that.
It's excellent.
Yeah, so if we did that throughout BC, all the municipalities, now we can start to make a difference. And this is where it goes back to taking it back at at local levels, where you, as my wonderful co-host Vicky always says, a revolutionary act is where you put your dollar. And so that's, we the consumer have the power. So more education needs to get out there. Hence,
that's very possible, Kevin, because being a director on SIR, sterile insect release, we considered having nursery outlets ban the sale of plum fruit trees, so we wouldn't have it, because our big problem are these backyard people with one tree in the backyard that don't spray or don't take care of their codling moth problem, and that's where a lot of the problem came from, So, but the regional districts and municipalities wouldn't do that. So, I don't know. They just decided to do the enforcement the way we have been dealing with it. But it's definitely an interesting concept that we can look at closer, and I intend to do just that.
It's been wonderful having you on.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me. And I appreciate the work that both of you do in getting this out to the public. It's at least as important, if not a whole lot more than what I do. But I think if we're all working on to gain the same end. So let's keep it going,
Well, that's it. And yes, thank you. And like you and I have talked quite a bit, and we don't always agree on all the issues or the different routes that we can go down. But at the end of the day, we do agree that we both want, real food on our dinner plates. We want to have the freedom of choice. Yes, I don't agree that we can that they can exist together, GMOs and organics or real food. They can't coexist. That's already been put out there, So we're just going to wrap it up with you here, Allan, and thank you again so much for coming on, and and even for yourself on May 14th, we're showing the documentary GMO Alfalfa: The End Game down here in Penticton at the Wells Galleon Restaurant, and it's a great little 17-minute documentary. So if you can make it down, by all means, make it down.
Okay. I'll try for sure. Now you're having that march on the 24th, are you?
Yeah,
March
and
on the 24th. Yeah.
Yeah, May 24th. It's at 11 a.m. It's start up at Gyro Park here in Penticton, where hopefully yourself, as well as Alex Adamanenko, the Southern Interior MP, that will also be speaking at. So I'm looking very forward to that, and hopefully we have even a bigger turnout than we had last year, which was quite impressive. 200 to 300 people they had. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. I intend to be there for that.
Excellent.
Great.
Okay,
well, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah,
thank
you have
again.
yourself a great evening, Al.
Okay. Thank you, Vicki, and thank you, Kevin. So we'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Well,
that was
what
very
about that, Kevin?
Well, it's funny. Like when they had the GMO, when Shiv Chopra and Thierry Brain came through to talk about GMOs, the tour that they're doing, and Thierry Brain is still he's out east right now doing it. But when sitting with Allan Patton, we had actually discussed the sterile insect release, and Shiv Chopra didn't agree with that. So it's again, where we need a lot more discussion, and a lot more awareness and more discussion. That's for sure.
Yeah. Although I did learn something new tonight, and that was I didn't really think of it before, but like all Canadian oil is GE, 100% GE, all Canadian oil. That was quite a statement.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if that's canola oil. I mean,
yeah, that would be Canadian oil. Yeah, all canola oil.
Yeah, so because I mean, not all cooking oils, because I mean, there's all different types of.
No, of course, there's olive oil and all that. But what he said was all Canadian oil. And the other thing that I thought was a really compelling statement, and we know it, but I like the way that he phrased it, and that was these companies are controlling food, not supplying food. So when they talk about, feeding the world, it's under their control. And that doesn't mean feeding everybody, really. It doesn't mean making sure everybody's bellies are full. It just means they're controlling the food supply.
Yes. Well, and coincidentally, a lot of these processed foods that are out there on our shelves that do contain the GMOs and patents are going up drastically in price. And that's them raising the prices of the ingredients for those products, which gets passed on to the, let's say, craft or whoever it may be, which again passes it on to us, the consumer.
Yeah.
So if their goal is out to feed the world, why are they raising the prices like they are?
I think it's calculated. I think this is the more we protest, the higher the prices are going to go. I think it's a psychological thing myself. I think it's like a psychops almost.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at the pumps, for example. I mean, all of a sudden it just skyrocketed. Why?
Why? Yeah. The wondrous question why. Yeah. Like I told you before, I think of a fellow I knew that was teaching me how to day trade, and it was like a really, really good experience because for the first time I started to understand how things worked. And it is a big gambling thing. That's all it is. It's just a big casino, and with a few players that have huge advantages. But, what he taught me, say, about the price of oil, for example, was they can control the price of oil because it's reset at, at certain dates, certain intervals when the count is taken. But whether they want to show they have more oil or less oil, they don't have to count all of the ships that are held offshore purposely that are filled with oil. And so in this way, they can create the price going up or they can create the price going down. It's they just say, okay, bring the ships in on that day, or they say, keep them out. So this is the way the world works, and it's not just in oil, but it's in our food, it's in our medicine, it's in every single industry that there is. Just this massive need to control.
I know, and it just it all goes back to money, and I never thought that I'd be saying that, like you hear it when you're young, you're younger, money's the root to all evil, and never has it ever been so evident as to today. And, everybody wants to be a millionaire and go play golf now. All of a sudden, they, forgot, what it means to be, on this earth, like we all have a role here, and so if everyone turned into a millionaire and didn't work anymore, we'd be pretty screwed.
Yeah.
Well, here's something, like I just caught the video, and this is coming out from Greenpeace, and I know I shared it with yourself as well, and we still got to look into the sources and everything else here, but it's called New Bees. And we're seeing how robotics and technologies are coming into play. And coincidentally, they show this, like with the die-off of the bees, which a lot is being attributed to GMOs, to pesticides, and a lot of the Wi-Fi and cell technology here, the cell towers. Coincidentally, now they've created the robotic bee. And it was very alarming to watch because they make it seem like it's the solution, And coincidentally, when you see who supports it, who's the investors into it, it's all the same companies, Monsanto, Dole, Syngenta, Bash, all these GMO companies that are actually invested in this.
Yeah. They're coming up with a solution for the problem they caused instead of, reversing what they do. And I am still hoping that Greenpeace film is some sort of gag. I'm holding out that vain, that very remote hope that that's what it is. But for the moment, I'll accept it for what it is. It's there, and it's scary.
Yeah, well, it's like you just said. They create the problem, they wait for the reaction, and coincidentally, they seem to have the solution. And they've been doing that for a very, very long time, probably hundreds of years. And and this is where technology has come into play here. With the internet, how we've been able to get ourselves informed, and it's no wonder that they want to get control of the internet because I don't think they like us doing all this stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully more and more people will come to understand, and like I said to Allan, to just push the fear aside because there's a lot of fear around it, and just realize that, hey, okay, now is my line. Here's my line in the sand now, and I am not going to eat like this anymore. We all have to do that personally, and it doesn't have to be all at once. Just as long as you can stop. Make your first decision. You're going to stop eating Kraft dinner. You're going to stop eating, stuff from the company Kraft, which, by the way, was taken over by the old company Philip Morris when they ran into so much trouble with the courts over the cigarette thing. So, we just have to realize that we just need to take baby steps for ourselves and take a little bigger leap when we personally each can.
Yep, and that goes right back to what we're trying to do, locals supporting locals, keep your money local. It just makes sense, and, it is truly a revolutionary act to keep your money local. And we start from there, like what we're starting there with the Wild Scallion, dinner, movie, and a chat is one start, and we have discussions, and, you bring the awareness. And it's not fear, it's knowledge, and now we discuss how we're going to solve it. We got a lot of progressive city councils, persons, farmers doing it, so thank you very much.
Yeah, just a reminder before we wrap up that is March 14th at dinner at the Wild Scallion.
May 14th.
Oh, is it March? Oh, yeah, May 14th. Sorry, I'm a little behind.
Yeah. Yeah, that's at 7 p.m., so by all means, stop on by. It's by donation. Everyone's welcome. Okay, thanks again, and tune in next week, and we'll have Heidi Osterman on the show from the True Food Foundation.
Oh, wait, one more. Were you going to mention Spotted Lake?
Oh, that's right. I apologize. Spotted Lake is open to the public May 9th, 10th, and 11th, and that's by donation as well. And they're asking because I think there's going to be an amazing turnout this year for people, if they can, to bring food, vegetables, produce, or something that they prepared, hopefully along the organic or natural way there.
What is Spotted Lake? What's happening at Spotted Lake?
Well, that's the medicinal healing lake. You can go onto the supporting local website on the events, and there's more information there for you. And that's www.localsupportinglocals.ca. And look on our Facebook too at Local Supporting Locals Okanagan chapter.
Okay, very good, Kevin. Thanks. It's been a slice.
Okay. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.